Welcome to another episode of I Speak African. I'm your host Yanu, and today's episode I want to focus on growing up African. Um, but this episode is not going to solely focus on having African immigrant parents because I know that Black Americans and Caribbeans can also relate. So yeah, my father's Yoruba. He's Nigerian. Um, and growing up, my father was super strict, very education oriented. He wanted all of us to be doctors. We had to get straight A's. We could only get a few B's and definitely no C's or nothing below a C. Actually, nothing below a B. He wanted all A's. That's what he wanted, all A's. And then if you got like a B or one or two B's, he'd be like, all right. But then he'd be like, don't get any, like, get A's. Um, yeah, so whenever I got C's, I didn't do good in elementary school. I didn't care about elementary school. So whenever I got a C, I would get punished. And his punishments were uh, go face the wall and raise your hands and stand on one leg. And yeah, that wasn't just for me; it was for everyone in the family. And then also, he was like very big on us eating Nigerian food. He, the only American food he really knew how to make was like chicken, like meat, like poultry or beef. Like he knew how to make good steaks and chicken, things like that. But he could not make spaghetti to save his life. I mean, one time he made spaghetti, he burnt it. Almost like it was horrible. But he was like, yeah. So he wanted us to eat Nigerian food. He wanted us to eat eba, egusi, plantains. He moi moi. He made moi moi, but because we liked it, he decided that he was gonna make it like a special occasion type dish. So he barely made moi moi. And I remember like he would make it for my birthday. Um, yeah, and it was like it was, and then like we always had to do chores. Um, yeah, we had to do chores. We had to clean up, and I remember he every time we moved into a new house, the dishwasher would break. And if you notice anything about black parents, especially African and Caribbean, they don't use dishwashers. They clean everything by hand. And I swear my father would break the dishwasher every time we moved into a new place, whether it was an apartment or a house, because we never used a dishwasher. It was broke, and we just used it to dry, to dry the utensils and dishes. And then he would give us a 4 hour sermon every Sunday, and he was not a pastor. He would just do it, and it was always the same about education, 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 education. But I didn't. It wasn't just me that had it hard. I remember when I was in elementary school, this I had a classmate, and she was Senegalese. And now that I look at it, now that I reflect as an adult, like I know her life was harder than mine because her father was our teacher in our elementary school. So he was our, I think, third or fourth grade teacher. And then, like 2 years later, her mother became a kindergarten teacher. So that means she went home, she saw her parents. She went to school, she saw her parents. She came back home to go to bed, she saw her parents. And now, now that I look at it, I realize why she kind of ran away from, not really ran away from home, but I think she ended up joining the military or something like that. Nah, I really get it. But yeah. And then, like, another thing about, like, African parents is you never know what they do. The only time you know what they do is if it's something that they are extremely proud of, like being a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer. They'll make sure you know. They won't stop telling you. They'll have you call them, or not you, but they'll have their friends address them as doctor or prof. Like my uncle's a professor. That's what they call him. They call him prof, and I'm like, that's your title. That's not your name. Like call you by your name. Well, you know how Africans are. Yeah, it's like growing up, even to this day, I never knew where my father worked. I didn't know where he worked at. Like people, like I remember teachers were like, "Where did your father work at?" I'm like, "Hospital." Like, yeah, which hospital? I'm like, "A hospital," because I didn't know what he never he. You couldn't ask him where do you work. So I just concluded that he was either FBI or CIA. And then, of course, this is a big one in all black families. A big, I guess, no. No touching the thermostat. So I remember we couldn't touch the heat. The thermostat to change the heat or the air condition. You know, if it was winter, we wear socks and we wear, uh, like, I guess, whatever, thick pajamas, but no touching the thermostat or the, to change the heat or the air condition. And then on top of that, you can't joke with no African parents. They take it seriously. They take it as an insult, but they can joke with you. And you can't laugh at them because they take that as an insult too. Um, Also, there was no allowance. I remember when I would go to school and I would hear like, you know, some of the white kids or some of the black kids that, I guess their parents had money. They'd be like allowance, and I was like, what's allowance? And they'd be like, oh, my parents give me money like every 2 weeks or whatever or every month. I'm like, for chores? And like, no, they just give me money. And then I remember I went home and I was like, asked my parents like, mommy, daddy, can I have allowance? They're like, no. And they were like, allowance? What's allowance? And I just reminded me of that episode of the Boondocks when when Riley is selling chocolate candy, and then the British guy is like, "I'm allowing you to breathe." That's what I'm thinking of. So yeah, I never got allowance. I mean, as I get older, I would cut like both the front and backyard and get like $10, but nope, never got allowance. And then like another another big thing is like how African parents are always borrowing money, like big money. Like I remember I'll be like, you know, as a kid I used to cut grass. Like me and my siblings, we would cut grass, and that's how we make our money, because we couldn't work. So like or whatever however we came across money, and our father would be like, "Can I borrow?" And as a kid, $20. Well, now $20 and $50 is a lot of money. Like that's even a lot today. But my father would be like, he'd be like, Yanu. I'd be like, yes. And he'd be like, let me borrow $50 or let me borrow $20. I'd be like, as a kid, you're like, sure, like you want your parents to be happy. Yeah, I give him $20 and he's like, yeah, I'll pay you back when I get paid at the end of the week or whatever. And then you ask him for the money back, he screams at you for asking you for your money back. And I was like, but yeah, that's how African parents are. And then I remember going over one of my Mazungu friend's house. I remember hearing him scream at his parents, telling them to shut up, and I was like, "What's happening? What's going on here? How is he still breathing? He doesn't get in trouble?" And I was just like, "Yeah, must be a different household, different upbringing." But yeah, I, as a kid, even as an adult, I was screaming at my parents. But even as a kid, I would never have even thought or dared to scream at my parents. Um, a funny topic is sexuality or pornography in African households. Because I remember when I was African, I was like a young teenager. My father would watch this show called Rome, and it was on HBO, and it was before Game of Thrones, and of course, it's about the Roman Empire. So these producers or these directors are just gonna pretty much make the show like you know softcore pornography. So I would just be watching the show not knowing what it's about, and then boom, a sex scene, like full nudity sex scene. And then as a kid I'm feeling uncomfortable, but at the same time I can feel my father's gaze on my back. And then I turn around and then he's looking at me. I'm thinking to myself, yo, why are you looking at me? Like, I'm not Rome. I'm not the TV show. Watch the TV show. But he be looking at me. And then he don't say nothing. He just look at me. And it's in the dark because you watch it in the dark. He just be looking at me. And then all I can see is his eyes. And then I just like run to the room. But yeah, and it was like, I'm telling you, Rome was Game of Thrones season 1 and 2. Y'all remember Game of Thrones season 1 and 2, where uh, like almost every episode with Daenerys or Theon was just a full sex scene. Yeah, that's what Rome was. Um, but you know, now that I'm older, it always make me laugh. It always made me laugh. But speaking speaking of pornography, uh, side note, I remember this one time, and this is more recent. Um, so it's me, my brother, my two other brothers, and my brother. He's like, my teacher is going to offer us extra credit if we come to his house for Thanksgiving and like pray with them. And we're like, all right, let's go. So then we go and we're all praying. We're saying what we're thankful for. And we go in the circle as everyone. So it's like everyone. It's the teacher, his family, all this stuff. And the teacher's, or professor's son, who is no more than like maybe 10 or 11, he goes, I want to thank God for ridding me of my addiction of masturbation. And we all just turn and look at this little boy and we're like, huh? And his father's like, okay. His parents are like, okay. I'm thinking like, how do you have masturbation or, uh, you know, uh, pornography addiction at like 10 or whatever age he was? Like, you know, that's just crazy. But I guess we live in a crazy world. And then like, so back to me growing up. I remember when I was in high school. Like as I said, my father was very strict, so he was like, school was everything. So we would ask him for money. He'd be like, no, I don't have any money. And then we would be like, well, can we get a job? And he'd be like, okay, but you can only work like 2 days. And I'm thinking like, that's not how stores operate. Like stores don't tell like stores aren't very generous when it comes to the leeway they give to employees. They're either like, no, you do what we want, or we're not gonna hire you. So I was like, yeah, okay, I'll work 2 days, and then I was working more, but he would get mad at me. But then he wouldn't pay for any of my senior dues. And what senior dues are, it's like you pay money for prom, like for prom, for grad night, and for graduation. And I think like totals like maybe, I think when I was in high school it was like $100. I don't know what it is now, but you know, yeah, he didn't want to pay for anything. But as strict as my father was, I still do appreciate some aspects of the way I was raised in, not just him, my mother too, but like also the culture, because I think culture is very important. Because like it's very important. Like you look at nowadays, kids are crazy. They're disrespecting their elders. They're saying all this crazy stuff, and I don't even know what they say half the time. Riz and Delulu and whatever crazy things the kids are saying, but they don't have no. The kids have no respect anymore. Not just the kids, even like you know younger adults, like 20 to like 25. They're crazy and they don't have any respect, and they don't know what respect is. Um, and it's like the funny thing is like when you speak to Black Americans or Caribbeans, they'll tell you a very similar thing. Like, yeah, I couldn't touch the thermostat. I couldn't do this. I had to be in the house by the time the street lights came on. So, I always hear Africans saying like, "Oh no, we're so much different." No, we're like we're all the same. Like we're all the same. Uh, we're not identical, but nearly identical. You know, it's just I was born here, you were born there, and you were born here. But we have a lot more in common than non-black people. Um, but the problem that I've noticed in a lot of African households is that our parents have experienced a lot of trauma, you know, before they came here, back home, and they never like unpacked that trauma. And they never sought out therapy. And now that they're older, they're like, no, I'm too old to go to therapy. Even though they're not, they're like, no, I'm not going to go to therapy. Why? Why should I tell people my problem? Why they want to know my information? They want to use it against me. And it's like, no, it's to help you. And it's like, no. So it's like a lot of our elders, you know, they pass their trauma on to us, and some of us don't want to deal with it. And then even the ones who do go to therapy, they're not doing their assignments. When you go to therapy, your therapist gives you an assignment. Okay, this is how you're going to improve yourself. This is how you're going to overcome your trauma. This is how you're going to overcome your anxiety or whatever you're dealing with. You have a lot of people that just go to therapy because, you know, I think they like the way it sounds. Oh, I go to therapy. But it's like, no, you actually have to do the homework. Do the homework. The same way you go to school. You go to school, teacher gives you homework, you got to do the homework. Or, that's part of your grade. Well, part of your grade, your whole entire grade for therapy is doing the homework and improving and recovering. So that's something that I wish more African parents would do, go to therapy. Um, but a funny story is, just as I was saying, how it doesn't matter where you come from, the diaspora, we're all very similar. Like this Ethiopian girl I went to college with, I saw her like maybe like 2 years after we graduated, and she was we caught up and we were talking, and she was telling me about how um, she still lives at home, and at the time I think she's like 27. We're like in our you know mid to late 20s, and she's telling me how like to this day her father still doesn't allow her to stay in the basement for too long. Like if she's in the basement for more than like 30 minutes, he'll come and find her and be like, come upstairs. You can't stay in the basement. And I'm like, why doesn't he allow you to stay in the basement? And she's like, I don't know. I'm like, okay. You know, I don't know. Is it a Habesha thing? You guys tell me in the comments if you're Ethiopian or Eritrean and you're a girl or you have sisters and your father or elders don't allow you to stay in the basement. Let me know why they don't allow y'all to stay in the basement. What are y'all doing in the basement? Like, what goes on in the basement? Y'all be having Habesha parties? Let me know. But yeah, that concludes today's episode. Please like and subscribe to my channel so that I can continue giving y'all more content. Also, y'all can email me at ispeakafrican12 at gmail.com. That's ispeakafrican and then the letter 12 at gmail.com. I also have the episodes on Spotify for download. So yeah, y'all check it out. Let me know what y'all think. I'll give y'all more content. If y'all have any ideas, let me know. And also, if you guys have, no, if you guys want to write, I wouldn't say letters per se, but if you guys want to write something and y'all might need advice or y'all might, want to vent or just make jokes about, um, being African or just being black in general, you can email me or you can write in the comments and I'll respond to them. And and then also I'll incorporate them into future episodes. Okay. All right. Thanks, and you guys have a blessed day.